of Cameroon presidential election.
Sure, Nnamdi Kanu's brother Ejimako released from Kuje prison.
Many trapped as two-story building collapses in Lagos.
Kanu abandons plan to enter defense, insists on no case submission.
And President Tinubu holds meeting with new service chiefs. Details now.
All right. Aloy Ejimako, the Special Counsel of Nnamdi Kanu, leader of the Indigenous People of Biafra IPOB, and activist politician Omoyele Sowore have been released from Kuje prison after perfecting their bail conditions. Kanu's brother, Prince Emmanuel, was also released from the prison today as well, alongside others arrested for participating in the hashtag Free Nnamdi Kanu Now protest in Abuja. Sowore, who led the protest, was subsequently arrested by the Nigerian police force when he visited the Federal High Court in Abuja for Nnamdi Kanu's trial. They were arraigned before a magistrate court in Kuje Area Council, which eventually granted them bail on Friday. Well, on Monday, Sowore, Ejimako, Prince Emmanuel, and the others were seen leaving the prison premises with their belongings while singing a solidarity song. Ejimako had actually collapsed and was rushed to Kuje Prison Clinic for medical attention just during the weekend.
Meanwhile, an undisclosed number of persons were reportedly trapped after a building collapsed in Lagos in the wee hours of Monday morning. This was disclosed in the situation report released by the director of the Lagos State Fire and Rescue Service, Margaret Adesheye. The affected building had been identified as a two-story building located at 54 Cole Street near Cemetery Bus Stop in the Oyingbo area of Lagos. Adesheye, who confirmed the incident, said the Sarigomu Fire Station team was immediately dispatched to the scene after receiving a distress call at about 12:20 a.m. on Monday. The agency confirmed that the structure, which had previously shown signs of distress, gave way while residents were still inside. So far, 15 people, including 7 men, 4 women and 4 children, have been rescued with varying degrees of injuries and taken to the Federal Medical Center in Ebute Metta and the General Hospital Odan in Lagos Island. Rescue efforts are still ongoing.
Now, the detained leader of the proscribed Indigenous People of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, today abandoned his earlier plan to call witnesses in his ongoing trial before the Federal High Court in Abuja. Kanu is being prosecuted on 7 counts of terrorism charges brought against him by the federal government. On Friday, Kanu had prayed the court for an adjournment after informing the trial judge, Justice James Omotosho, that his former legal team, led by a former Attorney General of the Federation, a Minister of Justice, Chief Kanu Agabi, had yet to release his case file to him. While Kanu had earlier expressed his readiness to open his defense in a written application to the court, in which he indicated his intention to call witnesses and requested the issuance of witness summons. However, at the resumed hearing earlier today, Kanu told the court that upon reviewing the case file, he had concluded that there was no valid charge against him. He argued that since he believed the charges were unlawful and that the prosecution had failed to establish any case, there is no need for him to proceed with his defense. In response, the trial judge, Justice James Omotosho, directed Kanu to file a written address formally stating his position and to serve the prosecution accordingly. Justice Omotosho further advised the IPOB leader to consult experts in criminal law to understand the possible legal implications of his decision. The judge thereafter adjourned the case to November 4, 5, and 6 for the adoption of final written addresses. Now, still on Nnamdi Kanu's case, human rights lawyer Inibehe Effiong has disclosed that the legal strategy of the leader of the Indigenous People of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, is confusing. He argued that Kanu is taking risk for abandoning his earlier plan to call witnesses in his ongoing terrorism trial before the Federal High Court in Abuja. The IPOB leader, as you do know, earlier today shelved his earlier plan to call witnesses in his defense, which included the governor of Lagos State, the governor of Imo State, former chief of army staff, former NIA director, former DSS DG, including the FCT minister, amongst others. Earlier, Kanu had written to the court indicating his intention to call these witnesses and apply for a witness summon begging the court for time to study his case file. However, Inibaha Effiong, via his X account formerly known as Twitter, warned that Kanu's latest move is a very risky gamble. He wrote, "The court had previously overruled his no-case submission. It is no longer open to him to contend that he has no case to answer. There are two options that he can explore. Either he opens his defense or he rests his case on the case of the prosecution. He has indicated that he no longer intends to open his case. If my assessment is wrong, then palpable confusion has ensued. My understanding of the media reports of today's proceedings is that Kanu believes that the prosecution has not proved the charges against him beyond reasonable doubt. The law firm stated that a defendant has no obligation to prove or establish his or her innocence. Since this defendant, Kanu, had pleaded not guilty to the charges, the court will now have to examine the evidence adduced by the prosecution to see whether the elements of the offences charged have been proven beyond reasonable doubt. The fact that Kanu has elected to pursue his case in this manner is not going to be construed as an admission of guilt. However, the evidence adduced by the prosecution team will be deemed as unchallenged, save for the evidence elicited under cross-examination.
Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu today held a meeting with the newly appointed service chiefs at the Asorok Villa in Abuja. The meeting marks the first official encounter between the president and the new service chiefs appointed on Friday after the president announced sweeping reforms in the country's military hierarchy. The details of the meeting have not been made public. You will recall that the president on Friday declared he had changed the nation's service chiefs as part of efforts to strengthen Nigeria's security architecture. In his submission, the president appreciated the outgone service chiefs for their years of service and dedicated leadership and urged the newly appointed service chiefs to discharge their duties professionally and ensure the armed forces serve Nigeria with honor. Meanwhile, Plateau State Governor Caleb Mutfwang has said he's seriously been pressured by political figures to dump the People's Democratic Party (PDP) for the All Progressives Congress (APC). The governor made the disclosure during the weekend at an event held at the banquet hall of the Government House in Jos. He noted that his decision to remain in the PDP, stressing that only God and the electorate who voted him into office can determine his political direction. This comes a few weeks after APC leaders in Plateau State moved to block the governor from joining the party. The APC leaders at a recent stakeholders meeting in Jos unanimously endorsed the motion seeking to stop Governor Mutfwang from defecting to the party. The motion was reportedly moved by Festus Fuwanta, former Deputy National Secretary of the APC. Reacting to the development, Governor Mutfwang said those rejecting his rumored defection were acting out of fear.
Meanwhile, popular Nigerian cleric Bishop David Abiyoyi has slammed Nigerians and some government officials who dismissed claims of Christian genocide in Nigeria. The United States Senator Ted Cruz, as you do know, had recently claimed that there is an ongoing genocide against Christians in Nigeria. However, some government officials insisted that there was no truth to the claim. In fact, the Senate had set up a committee to visit the United States of America, visiting their parliament to denounce indeed that there is no actual Christian genocide, maintaining that the insecurity situation in Nigeria is not connected to religion. Reacting to the claim while speaking in church recently, Abiyoyi described those denying the tag of Christian genocide in Nigeria as wicked set of people. He pointed out that people were being buried in hundreds, yet some Nigerians were denying claims of genocide. According to him, he says, "I agree there are other killed in other places for other reasons, but this one is very clear, and gradually it's eaten down to the south, southwest and southeast, and many so-called leaders for their personal interest are claiming it is not true, selling out their faith if they have it at all." End quote.
The African Democratic Congress (ADC) has accused the federal government of weaponizing hunger and manipulating food prices for political gain. In a statement today, Malam Bolaji Abdullahi, the ADC's National Publicity Secretary, said the government's claim of improved local food production was false and designed to deceive Nigerians into believing that the economy is improving. He said the reported drop in food prices was artificial and the result of import waivers that had flooded the market with cheap foreign products, undermining local farmers already struggling with insecurity and high input costs. The ADC questioned how production could be increasing when banditry had displaced farmers and fertilizer prices had become unaffordable. The party also accused the government of hoarding imported food while millions of Nigerians face hunger, describing the move as a cruel misuse of power.
The Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors has accused the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu-led administration of owing doctors and other health workers across the country an estimated 38 billion naira in accumulated allowances. The president of the association, Dr. Mohammed Suleiman, made the claim today during a press briefing in Abuja, where he presented the resolutions of the National Association of Resident Doctors Extraordinary National Executive Council meeting. The meeting followed the expiration of the association's 30-day ultimatum to the Nigerian government to address long-standing welfare concerns. Suleiman disclosed that resident doctors had already commenced ward rounds and patient handovers ahead of a planned nationwide total and indefinite strike, which is set to begin on Saturday, November 1, 2025. According to him, he added that the outstanding 25 to 35% consolidated medical salary structure review, there is the equipment allowance for all doctors in the health sector. For all the healthcare workers, the outstanding owed is about 35 to 38 billion naira. If it's just resident doctors, we're talking about maybe 400 million naira. But for all doctors in Nigeria, it could be between 600 to 800 million naira. According to Suleiman, the government's inaction persists despite the association's earlier warning strike and subsequent extensions of deadlines meant to allow time for resolution. You're currently listening to the World News right here in Voice of the People, 90.3 FM. We'll take a very short break. When we return, we're heading to a news analysis segment. We'll be joined via the telephone with Barrister Fred Nzako, who is a political, social, and national affairs commentator. Barrister Fred Nzako will be responding to some questions posed at him. To kindly stay with us. All right, thank you for staying with us. You're still listening to the World News right here on Voice of the People, 90.3 FM. Before we proceed with our analysis segment, I would like us to take a listen briefly to Nnamdi Kanu in court and his immediate reaction when he was amongst a couple of friends and some legal experts who surrounded him when he submitted his no-case submission today.
You don't know what law is. You don't know what justice is. Where's those news agents of Nigeria? What are they?
That's it.
You don't know that God is a God of justice? You don't know that? That God in heaven is a God of justice? You don't know that?
Nzako, it actually quite took a couple of persons by surprise, or a couple of people who have been following this case by surprise, when Nnamdi Kanu disclosed that abandoning his plan to enter defense. Last week, we were also shocked when he called out some high-profile individuals whom he said would be witnesses. And in fact, we heard that he was bringing witnesses from the UK, the US, Ethiopia, and the likes. And we were assessing what role these witnesses were going to play and what kind of possible questions we're going to respond to as those who would supposedly speak on his behalf or be cross-examined based on salient questions that will be asked by him. And then obviously he was just given 6 days for his defense. Now, according to Nyesom Wike on Friday, during his monthly media chat with journalists, when he was asked, he said that if he gets the summon, he will definitely appear. So Nnamdi Kanu arriving in court today and telling us that he is no longer presenting these witnesses because he has no case answer. For Inibehe Effiong, he feels that what Nnamdi Kanu is doing is very risky and is quite confusing. What's your take on this, Barrister Fred Nzako?
The issue about Nnamdi Kanu is taking a very worrisome dimension. It's becoming very theatrical and very, very worrisome. And now that everybody who is standing trial for high offenses of that could attract death penalty or a life imprisonment or any sanction of up to 10 years must be represented by a lawyer. Even if the person does not have the capacity, the money to hire a lawyer, the state will provide the lawyer to the accused so that he will be able to defend himself. And that is why we have the Legal Aid Council and all other similar organizations from where you can draw from the legal team that will defend the accused. Now Nnamdi Kanu himself has sacked his lawyers and had opted to represent himself. And today again, he said he's no longer going to defend himself. That he submitted a no case submission, that he has no case to answer. But that is a very worrisome trend which must be handled carefully by the state. Because what I suspect, what I see with my clairvoyant eyes is that this trial will hit a deadline. Will hit a dead end. This trial will be frustrated to the point that the judge may be forced to adjourn it, sign, die, because of confusion that will attend to this trial. Now, the state has conducted their own and then concludes their own the presentation, only for the defense to take up his defense, and all the theatrics have come in. You cannot blame Nnamdi Kanu. You can also blame him. Yes, you blame him for sacking his lawyers and opted to defend himself. You will also not blame him because the state has breached the law. Several courts have said he has no reason to be further detained, and the government has refused to let him go. So he possibly has decided that since the environment is lawless, then let us take the lawlessness to a logical conclusion. The government has been lawless with respect to Nnamdi Kanu's matter, and they expect him to be lawful. And he has now wanted to toe the line of lawlessness by opting not to do anything in his trial. You keep him in detention without trial, it is an offense. You release him without a trial, it has to be done through the process of entering a nolle prosequi. And I think, if you ask me my honest opinion, the federal government should release that young man to go. Issues that will come out from Nnamdi Kanu at the end of the day may not be good for the Nigerian state. Because as we speak, the confusion that has bedeviled that trial, even the judge that is sitting on trial will be so confused because the matter is taking a very disturbing, different dimension. Some people are even beginning to allude to the fact that Nnamdi Kanu, his mental balance may have been affected. That his mental balance may have been affected. In which case, if anything untoward happens to him, who do you blame? You blame the Nigerian state. Because I've never seen a situation where courts of the land will give judgments that a citizen should be let off the hook, and the government that is supposed to obey the court will insist on not obeying the court orders.
All right, but Barrister Fred Nzako, let's look at this from this dimension, sir. So last week when he called out these witnesses, Nigerians were quite happy with that depth of intelligence. A couple of persons felt that if these persons do not present themselves, especially if the courts mandated them to, the court actually did mandate that they should present themselves, and that based on their responses, it would be a very classic trial. Do you think somehow the lawyers advised him against it? Because what we heard was that there are certain conditions that may have made his legal counsel at the time not mention these names. Maybe there are constraints, maybe they are gagged, maybe they are pressured, maybe they were threatened. He was in the right position to be the one to boldly call out those high-profile names that he called out, albeit some of them actually have immunity. So, do you think last minute they advised him not to actually present those individuals because the court had said that he cannot file a no case submission, and for them, the prosecuting counsel has presented all their evidence. And if there is a no case submission, it means that the court will make its conclusion based on what the prosecuting counsel presented as evidence. So, was he ill advised? Was he not aware of the consequences of his decision today? And then what is to be expected from this?
Let I tell you that I am as confused as the court is, because even the court is confused. Nobody knows what is playing out in the minds of Nnamdi Kanu, because the matter is neither here nor there. Yes, when he mentioned all those names, Nigerians were even confused, because these are some of the names that are adversarial to his issue, that are adversarial to his pursuit. These are some of the names that are in cahoot with the government that have been tormenting him since 2017, right from the era of Muhammad Buhari up to date. 2017 to 2025, you are looking at 8 good years. Nnamdi Kanu has been tormented by the government. And no man that will receive such level of tormentation and tormenting and harassment and persecution that will continue to enjoy that torment. So I am even afraid that something is happening that I don't know how to explain or what that is. Whether it was advised or not, there's no way you can conduct such level of trial the way and manner Nnamdi Kanu wants it to go. But the government has a lot of questions to answer. Is Nnamdi Kanu's mental health okay? Has anything tampered with his health? Has anything tampered with his sensibilities and his mental balance? These questions are very germane. He has been in the custody of SSS, even when he said, take me to Kuje prison, where I will have better facilities to live a better life, even in prison, and come to defend myself. The government said no. They kept him in SSS.
Can a question on his mental acuity be presented as something that should be considered? Can that be presented by?
Why not? A man whose mental balance has been affected one way or the other is incapable to stand trial.
But if that was in question, the court wouldn't have allowed him to defend himself in the first place when it disregarded his legal counsel last week.
I'm only raising posers. I am not concluding.
Okay.
So that those who hear me will also think along that line.
Okay.
Because we must think what has happened and what has made Nnamdi Kanu to behave the way and manner he is behaving now. Is a very critical question that everybody must ask. What has happened to him that is behaving this way? One thing in the morning, another in the afternoon, yet another in the evening. And there is no way any trial that is conducted in a haphazard manner will be a travesty of justice. If you jail him without due trial, it is travesty of justice. If you refuse to try him properly, accusing him of not defending himself, it will again be a travesty of justice. At the end of the day, this trial will hit a cul-de-sac. Confusion in the land, and then the only option left to government is to respect orders of court.
Okay, Barrister, now we do know that the hashtag Free Nnamdi Kanu protest, which took place last week, I think on October 20, 2025, which also culminated to the arrest of Aloy Ejimako, Nnamdi Kanu's brother. And then I think after a few days, 2 days after, Omoyele Sowore was also apprehended. I wanted to ask you, was it possible that all of this were tied together? Because Aloy Ejimako was held in custody for approximately 4 days. They were all released properly today, to the point that he collapsed on Friday. I think during the weekend he collapsed. Omoyele Sowore was also rearrested, albeit we saw how he was malhandled before he was taken into custody. Today, when they were to appear in court concerning Omoyele Sowore's case, we saw the police trying to fire tear gas at his supporters. There are talks that this administration is seriously clamping down on any form of criticism or dissent. The same thing happened with those whose properties were demolished at Owurunṣoki. The police ensured that all through the night, from Sunday up until today, nobody came out to form any form of protest. They were present heavily there, and they were ready to disperse anybody who comes together to protest. What would you consider things to be like this, where there is no opportunity to criticize, to protest against the government of the day? Unless you are protesting for the government, you're not going to have any form of impediment.
It is very obvious that there is heightened desperate fear in government of today. It's very, very obvious that the government of today is afraid of its shadows, and that is why it does not allow constructive criticism. It does not allow civil protest. It does not allow any dissenting voice or dissenting opinion. And any government that begins to operate like that, that government is being chased around by its shadows. What is causing this government to be so much in trepidation, desperation, and fear? The other day, some soldiers were rounded up. There was talk in town about rumors of coup d'etat. Government denied. Yet, a few days after, you saw massive change in the hierarchy, in the security architecture of the country. I can tell you that the tempers in Nigeria as of today is that of serious trepidation. And the only way government will begin to calm things down is to toe the line of civility, because this is a civil regime. Any government that does not operate on the side of democratic tendencies and principles will always bear this type of trepidation and this type of panic. The government is under undue panic. Panic set by themselves, for themselves, and against the people. So, the only way they can wriggle out of it is to respect the provisions of our laws, respect the fundamental rights of the citizens, and obey lawful orders and judgments of court. QED. Anything other than that, this is not democracy.
All right, Barrister Fred and Zako, you were talking about Nnamdi Kanu's mental health and now talking about what the government should actually do in this case. Barrister Marshal Abubakar, who represents Omoyele Sowore, gave us a scoop last week right here on Voice of People 90.3 FM, where he said that the Chief Justice, he said this categorically, and he wasn't even trying to hide it. He said the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court in Abuja petitioned 8 of Nnamdi Kanu's legal counsel to the Legal Practitioners Disciplinary Committee, that's the LPDC, for them to be sanctioned for representing someone who has been accused of terrorism. Would you say that Nnamdi Kanu has seen that maybe the justices sitting presiding over his case have already taken a stand, and that is the reason for this, outburst, this vituperation, and he had to let his lawyers go so that he doesn't drag them down with him? And also, seeing this, if it is indeed true that the Chief Justice petitioned 8 lawyers for representing him, does that mean that he does not deserve representation? I mean, even murderers deserve representation. They're given representation in the court of law.
I said it earlier, and that is the position of our laws, that anybody who is accused of any crime or any offense is entitled to legal representation in a competent court of law. There is nothing that take away from it. So if anybody is raising petition against lawyers for representing Nnamdi Kanu, such a petition is a petition made in bad faith, mala fide, and should not be sustained. Again, if anybody is even trying to link the fact that Mr. Aloy Ejimako and a few others protested on October 20th, 2025 on the Nnamdi Kanu campaign, it is an argument that is still raging in the legal profession, and I belong to the school of thought that if you stop a lawyer from enjoying his personal liberty, then you are being discriminatory against that lawyer, and you are running against the provision of the Constitution. Because the fellow is first and foremost a Nigerian citizen before the fellow became a lawyer. So the fact that he's a lawyer does not mean that he will not join civil protest. When Justice Ayoisa Salami was promoted to the Supreme Court from when he was the president of the Court of Appeal, and he had problems with the then Chief Justice of the Federation, we lawyers wore our wig and gown and went on protest in our wig and gown. Ikeja Bar, Nigerian Bar Association, Ikeja branch did it. I was there, a couple of others of our branch, almost all of us were there. And we marched from the High Court to the government house and government office at Alausa in our wig and gown. So what does that tell you? So now Aloy Ejimakor did not march as a lawyer. He protested as a Nigerian citizen, wearing his native dress. He did not wear wig, he did not wear gown. Why will anybody now come and begin to claim? In fact, there are so many other instances where lawyers in River State, where River State judiciary was closed down when they were protesting, lawyers marched to the government house, dressed and robed in their wig and gown as fully as lawyers. The same way we robe in the courts. And nobody saw anything wrong about it. Why would you, because it's in Nnamdi Kanu's matter? Now, I don't Ejimakor, because he protested, they are now calling for his head. I think anybody calling for Aloy Ejimakor's head should think twice and be honest to himself. The man committed no offense known under the law.
Well, Barrister, that's a kind of confusing situation we found ourselves in Nigeria. At this point in time, you can't even know in what way to implement law or interpret law, because according to Professor Chidi Odinkalo very recently, he was asked a question, and the question that was posed at him was, according to law, was it right for Nnamdi Kanu to represent himself? According to law, was it proper that Aloy Ejimakor was apprehended and detained, knowing that he has a case to respond to, and that is there anything wrong with the fact that he protested for his client, considering that the case is in court? And Chidi Odinkalo said he cannot respond because the law is confusing. There is no law in Nigeria. He doesn't even understand how to interpret the law, because the law that they knew at the time is not what is being practiced at this time. Barrister Fred Nzako, let's look at something quite exasperating, but Nigerians seem to have been able to acquiesce themselves with this particular development, where Dele Farotimi recently spoke and said, who swore for us in this country? I don't know if you recall at the time when there was a publication released where there was a bill presented to the Senate for terrorists to be given foreign education. They're to enjoy foreign education. And he was wondering, at what point in time in our civic responsibility in a democratic dispensation do we see this kind of amnesty extended to terrorists who have mutilated people, ransacked homes, and literally destroyed entire communities and kept the country in disarray? That there is a bill to extend amnesty for them to enjoy foreign education. If you compare that scenario with the president reshuffling of his security cabinet, are we saying that extension of amnesty is secluded or isolated to certain persons and not other persons who have one grievance or the other, or who are agitating for one thing or the other?
If you worry every Nigerian, what is going on in the country today is actually worrisome, that Nigeria is not making progress positively. Nigeria is retrogressing. I make bold to say this with all due respect to my country. We are retrogressing, and it is as a result of the kind of leadership that we have. You can imagine a situation where I posted it on my Facebook wall that as a Secretary General of Movement for Nigeria Restructuring, if we continue as a country to pamper evil, if we continue as a country to reward evil and punish wrongdoing or not do right to what is correct, then we are not building a nation. We are building something that is worse than a banana republic. There is no way you will explain to young people and the future generations that terrorists will be so-called rehabilitated, in quote, and be given scholarship to study abroad. Terrorists. And we are not talking about ordinary thieves, so we are talking about murderers, terrible murderers who do not believe in anything that is sane, who do not believe in anything that is lawful. They go about decimating lives, destroying properties, and causing chaos all over the place. Then you now bring them and say they have repented. Therefore, you want to rehabilitate them. which will include foreign scholarship. Oh goodness. In a country where those who have even conducted themselves well are thrown into prison, how do you build a country with that type of attitude from the leaders? It was written in one of the national newspapers, and when Nigerians thought it was false, but it is becoming real. The same way, terrible people were pardoned until Nigerians had to rise up and shout. So, what kind of country are we leaving behind? Are we building that people will be pardoned from the hanged man, but others who committed no offense, only they criticize the government, they will be forgotten in prison? You can't build a country like that. You can't build a society like that. You're only building a terrible environment that will consume everybody. The who much is given, much is desired. The leaders have a lot of responsibility to be responsible to their leadership and to the people who have given them that mandate to lead. If you don't have that nature or tent of responsibility, you can as well resign. There's nothing wrong with it. You resign and let the people choose some others who will lead them. Nigeria of today is not making progress. I keep saying this. The only thing you are seeing is we are enjoying the inflow of progress made in other countries because the world has become a global village. We are in an argument sometimes. Somebody was telling me, after all, we are now using mobile phone. I just laughed. Mobile phone that even ordinary battery you don't manufacture. Just tell me everything good in our environment that is made in Nigeria. Just tell me. We're only exporting our raw materials given to us freely by God. Freely by God. Adding no value. And when we export, we now import the so-called dividends of good living. The country, if you sit down to analyze Nigeria critically, this country is not moving forward.
All right, hold on, Barrister Fred is got. Hello, sir. Good evening. How are you? Thank you for joining us. Hello, sir. I can hear you. Good evening. My name is Esther Wachuku with Voice of the People 90.3 FM. Good evening, sir. And we're currently live, sir. Are you with Omoyele Shore right now, sir? VOP. Yes, sir. From VOP 90.3, sir. I'm very much aware that you are with him as they have released him from Kuje prison. What was the scenario like? Can you give us an idea of what precisely happened, the reason why he was rearrested? We're hearing different narratives about it, sir.
Please, I just got your number. I'm calling from Commercial Nigeria Enterprises.
Okay.
I just got your number from one of your staff.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We want to place an ad.
All right. Okay, sir.
The cause and the procedure.
All right, sir. We're trying to understand precisely what transpired and what happened in court today. And I'm trying to put in context as to what led to the rearrest, of Omoyele Shore at the time. We also wanted to put in context what could have been the reason for what transpired, because we thought that there were some questions, security questions related that Omoyele Shore was supposed to respond to. For example, you remember the publication where he said that the military was supposedly, some section of the military was supposedly planning a coup to overthrow the government, and there were talks that that's one of the reasons that he was being detained, to respond to the questions of who his source was for giving us such a recall with Sahara reporters. We also wanted to realize that beyond the situation with the IGP, what precisely led to the malhandling as of Friday. There were no explanations given other than the fact that he had cases to respond to. These are some of the clarifications that we want to get from you in response to that. Also, there are certain talks as to some statements that he made while he was in court. They said that he called the legal practitioners of the judiciary useless. He also called the presidency useless. He also mentioned that the police operators and the entire architecture, that these were the derogatory terms he used while he was in court. Hello, good evening. Thank you for joining us, sir. Can you now briefly give us the scenario of what transpired to his rearrest? We're trying to retain a connection with you, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, my name is Esther Machikusa with Voice of the People 90.3 FM, and I know you're Shore's lawyer. We want to know precisely what transpired. I know he's been released, but a lot happened during the weekend, on Friday precisely, that led to his rearrest. Can you give us in context what truly transpired?
What transpired on Friday is already very flogged extensively at public domain.
Okay.
It was arranged on Friday after being arrested in front of the federal court on Thursday by the FCC Police Command. Being arraigned on Friday together with those people that were earlier arrested during the protest of freeing Nnamdi Kanu, including the custodial content to Kanu, that is lawyer Jimako. All of them were arrested together that day. They were granted bail, in a very liberal term, which ordinarily would have taken more than 30 minutes to be perfected. So in the course of doing the documentation, the police were actually monitoring. They were so in large number in court, and the court premises everywhere was heavily policed. So I think when they discovered that these people were more or less like mocking them, like the feds within the next few minutes, Shore and others will be on their way home. I think they hatched a plan to ensure that they see attempts, to humble justice, and that was what led to the attack. It was an attack in the court premises. Shore was attacked together with some of us, including stain injury. In my hand, my beak was stained. So Shore was forcefully bonding into their vehicle, police vehicle.
Mr. Tokwesa, we heard that the reason why he was rearrested was because he called the judiciary and the Nigerian police derogatory names by saying they were useless. How true is that? That he made a couple of statements while he was in custody, which was wrong, and that was one of the reasons for his rearrest and malhandling. How true is that?
This is the question that we need to ask. After Shore was rearrested in the court premises,
exactly,
we started, talking to the public and the press.
Yeah.
Within less than 3 hours, information came that he had been taken to Kuje prison, and we had to go to Kuje prison, and we found him there. The news was that when we got there, the good news was that the prison officials were happy to see us. They said when they brought Shore for the order, they rejected him because they said there was some proper documentation. That's for you to know that what later led to taking to Kuje prison was an afterthought. It was like a defensive mechanism that was put in place to explain away the reason why somebody on bail could be hijacked. So if they now claim that he was arrested because of whatever comment.
Yeah.
Me, I don't know against you. I don't know anything about that. If that was the basis for the arrest, then that means there was a new case. That means there was a new case. So if he insulted the IG or he insulted anybody, and that now formed the basis of another arrest, he will not have been taken to Kuje prison.
But was he taken to Kuje prison without being served? I heard he was asking, what are you taking me in for? Where is your letter of warrant of arrest? What exactly? I wasn't notified.
We were there together. I was the one that even demanded to read because the CSP that led them.
Yes.
CSP was holding a piece of paper. I said it was a remand warrant. And we said, let us see the content. Every remand warrant we have the signatory, we have a designated place where the person is to be remanded, and we know the reason. Because you cannot say it is failure to perfect bail. Because even the magistrate that granted bail was still sitting. So it could not have been failure to perfect bail. If at the end of the day, you now say that he was arrested because of comments made, are you now saying there is a new allegation? So if there is a new allegation, why was he not taken to police custody for investigation on that statement? He was taken to Kuje prison, and police later explained that they only tried to submit him to authorities so that he could perfect his bail. So these are contradictions. It's not something I need to answer. If anybody asks me that they said he was arrested because he made some statement, the question I was that when he was arrested, where was he taken? If police arrest people in the street, do they just take them to prison directly? And then what police explained was that they didn't arrest him. That was what police PRO said. He said they didn't arrest him, but they only tried to take him to prison so that before he perfects his bail.
Is that how you try to take someone to prison? Is that how you malhandle someone because you want to take them to prison?
We are saying that is not their duty under Nigerian Correctional Service Act 2019. when you have submitted a suspect to court has become a defendant, you have submitted him to the custody of the court. If court grants bail, that is freedom, pending trial, subject to conditions. If you cannot perfect the conditions, it is the court that will now order correctional services to come and take him away. He's no longer a suspect under police. There is no the remand order that police can get is when they have not concluded the investigation. That is what the Administration of Criminal Justice at 2015. Section 293 says that they can go and get a remand order if they have not completed the investigation and they give them more time. This does not apply here. What applies here is Section 12 of Nigeria Correctional Service Act 2019 that says the magistrate has the power to order correctional service as the custodial agent of the federal government to take in anybody who has not been able to meet conditions of bail and all things. So what police did was pure anarchy, which they could not explain, and that is why you are hearing contradictory narration.
Why do we have this? Why do we have those who are meant to implement the law go against the law or act like they don't even understand what the law entails? Why do we have this?
What saved them was the fact that it was a well-planned attack, and they were able to take their men far away to monitor those who were recording, and they arrested those who were recording. They took everybody away. If Nigerians have had access to the video of where Sore was abducted and manhandled, I think the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria will have taken a position on the General Police today. You have taken position on him.
We even heard that they made sure that nobody converged to call or show any form of support. Today they were arrested.
They took them away.
All right.
They took them away.
But right now, is he okay? Is he safe? I heard we heard he's been finally released.
He's fine.
But he still has cases to respond to.
Is that what?
He still has cases in court too. He still has some other court appearances, like not today, but subsequently.
This same matter at Kuje was adjourned to December 15.
Okay.
So, but have you signed the bail documentation today by the magistrate? We have to bring him out. So he's home now.
He's home and he's okay.
Fine. Yes, he's fine.
All right, Mr. Tokpe Tomekun, thank you so much for giving us your time and giving us details.
My name is Timokun.
Okay,
so
Timokun.
I don't want to be on that basis.
All right, thank you so much, sir. God bless you for giving us insight. We sincerely appreciate it. We'll call you subsequently, sir, on clarity concerning issues like this. Thank you so much. All right, that was Omoyele Shore's lawyer giving us a breakdown and precise details of what transpired since Friday up until today. I'm sure you heard precisely all that took place. I think we are done with the news right about. But Barrister Freddy Zaka, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here with you.
Thank you so much. Did you hear Omoyele Shore's lawyer telling us what transpired today since Friday?
Yes, I heard him, and
okay.
It's an expression of the same complaint that we all have.
Yes.
That the government should not be the one to be breaking the law. Government agencies of all nature and type must realize that their primary assignment is to respect the provisions of the Constitution and respect the rule of law and respect the fundamental rights of the citizens. There's nothing that will take away the rights of the citizens because as enshrined by the Constitution. Anybody who is an authority must always respect that, because by the time you take an oath of office, that oath says that you must respect and implement the provisions of the Constitution.
Thank you so much, Barrister Fred and Zako, for joining us on the World News at 6 this evening. We do appreciate you.
Many thanks.
Enjoy the rest of your evening. You have been listening to the World News at 6 right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. It's time for us to go. My name is Chioma Innocent.
And I'm Esther Wachuku. Good evening. To stay with us for the evening rush, which comes up shortly.